This video is going to be a film study look at Aidan Hutchinson and his play during the Lions' defensive transformation, change, adjustment, whatever you want to call it, that's occurred in the past 2 weeks, their wins over the Broncos and then the Vikings. There's been a different flavor, not throughout all 60 minutes of the game, but there's been some things that Aaron Glenn and those guys have used to free up other rushers. And it requires very little observation to recognize how often Aidan Hutchinson has been chipped or at least given a second player to deal with on his way to rushing the quarterback in 2023. He did have 4.5 sacks through 5 games this year. It's possible that opposing teams that played them thereafter recognized that no one else was capable of winning one-on-ones. If you accept that offering there, I'm not sure that I believe all of it, but if you accept that, then it's also, I think, a natural progression or thought process to move toward, well, then eventually the Lions recognized what other teams were doing and had to morph into or change into this new pressure-oriented strategy. Again, I don't think that's what Aaron Glenn and those guys are doing throughout all 4 quarters. They pick and choose. That's the whole point of being unpredictable on defense. I think really what Lions fans want to know or would like to see happen is for Aidan Hutchinson to get freed up by some of these other pressures. He's been quieted. He just has. After 4.5 sacks through 5 games, he's got 2 sacks in the last 10 games. And just to put that in perspective, that's a span of time in which Aidan Hutchinson has played 540 snaps and only got 2 sacks. I believe last year, most rookie edge rushers played somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 snaps. I think Trayvon Walker played the most along with Aidan Hutchinson. If you were to just multiply that by 2.5 and say he finishes the year with 5 sacks, I think that'd be disappointing. It's a real pattern at this point. You have to recognize it. Having said that, I think the Lions have tried to adjust since their second game against the Bears. There's been a wider variety of blitzes and coverage versatility in those last 3 weeks. In my opinion, it didn't work, quote unquote, against the Bears. In the last 2 weeks, the wins against the Broncos and the Vikings, Lions have produced 6 sacks and 19 quarterback hits. None of those sacks have come from Aidan Hutchinson. I'm not pointing that out to say that he's playing poorly. I'm pointing that out to say that what they're doing now is a paradigm shift on some level. Now, as an aside, I do not ever reference quarterback pressures because I don't think they're well defined. You get different numbers from each rating service or statistical website that you use that publishes evaluations. So I do recognize that Aidan Hutchinson is pressuring the quarterback often. I got no problem with someone saying that. This ain't an anti-Aidan Hutchinson video. In fact, prior to the draft, before I even knew that the Lions were going to take him number 1, number 2, before I even really considered covering the Lions to be real, I said that I would have taken him number 1. You know, you can go back and look at my draft videos prior to that draft. Now, on the aspect or the topic of pressures, let me be real. Some of the rating services that publish their evaluations do not publish their play-by-play grading. So I want to say that again. If you don't, but in a different way, if you don't publish your play-by-play grading, I don't believe it. I don't. So when people say such and such has 48 pressures and such has 73, and we just assume the guy with 73 pressures is playing better than the guy with 48 pressures, I question that data. Until they publish their play-by-play grading, I don't believe it. Here's what I mean. Until you can click on 3rd and 6, negative 42-yard line, let me expand that data set. And I get all the information from that play that I want. I don't believe what they have to tell me. And you may have a different level of trust in those services. So really, I mean PFF, let me be clear. Until we can see every snap in the game, how it's graded, +1, +1.5, whatever, I will continue to ignore them at best and then openly criticize them at worst. And if I'm mistaken, and some of the rating services like PFF are actually providing that play-by-play, snap-by-snap score for the athletes they give their evaluations to, then let me know in the comment section. But to my understanding, they are not. So when we see one guy graded out as a 63 and another guy graded out as a 68, but the guy with the 63 had 3 pressures and the guy with a 68 had 5, what's a pressure? So as it relates to Hutchinson, is he pressuring the quarterback at times? Yes. Is he doing it more or less than other pass rushers or outside linebackers? I don't know. And that's why I focus on quarterback hits and sacks. I'll be honest with you. Do pressures matter? Of course they do. I'm, in fact, not minimizing pressures. I'm saying that if you're going to try to define them to me, don't just quote them, number one. And number two, if you're a rating service that charges a subscription per month for that data and that statistical designation, I think you should be giving out play-by-play data to let people know which plays you determine to be a pressure and which plays you do not. So I'm not going to talk about stats here necessarily overall. Let's look at the film, and first of all, what has Aidan Hutchinson dealt with primarily, or for the large part of 2023? Being chipped, being allocated more than one person to deal with on a particular play, and we knew that. We knew that coming in. I've done a couple of videos on him throughout the season. One thing I will say is his activity level is often incredible, meaning his pursuit, getting after the football, when he's committed. I did feel like earlier in the season he was playing more downhill on tracks, and there was a period of time, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, where he didn't appear to be as aggressive. There were some who mentioned that he was dealing with an injury. I got no problem with that. I would accept that, in fact. I would say that the play, he does look better from a 3-point stance, in my opinion. In a 2-point stance, I feel like he's often playing too high, and he ends up being redirected easier upon contact than I perceived earlier in the season. I can't prove any of that at all. Hey, look, he may have actually more sacks from a 2-point stance, so I could be wrong, but I'm pointing it out to you because it's based on, what my observations are. So it's definitely accurate to say he's been chipped by running backs and tight ends often. There's plenty of film that you're seeing now that it's happening. I'll show you some when we look at some film against the Vikings. It's going to be kind of a long video that's a little bit meandering. We will focus on Aidan Hutchinson, but I will talk about other players and the paradigm shift or tactical shift that Aaron Glenn has appeared to show in the last couple of weeks. Because when teams were forcing guys like Romeo Okwara, Josh Paschal, Charles Harris, and Bruce Irvin to beat them one-on-one and making things as difficult as possible on Aidan Hutchinson, be that a chip or whatever, that's a smart tactical decision on the offense's part. Because Hutchinson has 16 career sacks in 32 games. He has also got 38 other quarterback hits. No matter what you or I think of Hutchinson as a top 10 or top 20, outside linebacker, DN, edge rusher, whether you're a Michigan fan or a Michigan State fan or a Western Michigan or Central Michigan fan, he has produced. Now, whether 16 sacks and 38 other quarterback hits is enough for you based on where he was drafted and your standards and perhaps other factors, that's, up to you. But regardless, the reality is other teams determined that making things as difficult as possible on Hutchinson to impact the game was in their best interest. Now, after having 6 sacks following this loss here against the Ravens in Week 7, they had 6 sacks the next week in a home game against the Raiders. The Lions only generated 7 sacks in a 5-game stretch against the Chargers, Bears, Packers, Saints, and then the Bears again. Hutchinson had 1 of those. Now, that was the incredible end-of-game strip sack against Justin Fields, that 31-26 win at home the Sunday before Thanksgiving, November 19th. The reality is I think the Lions really had trouble getting to those quarterbacks that had good to very good athleticism and escapability. The guys like Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson with off-the-charts athleticism made it even more difficult. The task was often too high for the Lions' defensive line, including Aidan Hutchinson, to be able to consistently pressure, disrupt, let alone sack those quarterbacks. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. Moving to Week 15 of this year, you had a clear difference in strategy. Now, to briefly digress a little bit about the Lions' defense, I think the Chargers' win was an opportunity for someone, whether it was the coaching staff, whether it was fans, to recognize what was there, what was an issue. Won the game 41-38. Brilliant win on the road. But the defense got shredded. After the beginning 4 possessions, I think the Lions got 3 stops on the opening 4 possessions. You had 2 punts and then an interception by Kirby Joseph. When Anzalone definitely pressured Herbert because Hutchinson was looking for someone to cross his face and potentially guard him out in the flat. So a great example of team defense. But after that win over the Chargers, here's the next 4 weeks. It wasn't that long ago, so you probably don't need a reminder. The Lions gave up 27.8 points per game and were very fortunate to get out of there at 2-2. Could have easily been 1-3 in that next 4-game stretch, possibly even 0-4 if you want to take a real cynical look at the Saints game. The offense turning the football over was a big factor, obviously. I need to state that, but that's not what this video is about. The defense's inability to get pressure was ruining what is a very good run defense stopping group. They're very good at stopping the run. Some injuries, I think, played a role, most notably Aleem McNeil, a guy who has 5 sacks this year. He was a force against the run also, hasn't played since that win over the Saints. So week 15 against the Broncos. Some guys are shuffled in and out at the DB level. I thought Aaron Glenn started to use more stunts and blitzes, which I'm showing you on repeat here. Multiple guys involved. Brian Branch and Ifeatu Melifonwu, the main 2 guys. But Kendall Vildor as well. I think you see one instance of him on a corner blitz also. I was a little off with something that I said in one of my videos and then on another content creator's channel a couple of nights ago, Luke G's field review. I think I said that a lot of these blitzes with the DBs, the nickel blitzes, corner blitzes, are being used opposite Aidan Hutchinson. And I went back and checked, and I was off in terms of where the blitzes are coming from. Now, I do still think they're using the gravity and the attention of Aidan Hutchinson to make some of those things happen. So it's not that simple as Aidan Hutchinson isn't winning one-on-ones. It's not as simple as Aidan Hutchinson's being doubled all the time. And it's not as simple as I may have made it sound on his show in terms of, the blitzes are working because they're using the attention allocated to Aidan Hutchinson in a way to get other guys open. There still is a layer of truth there, if you ask me. But the stunts are more creative than that, and they're more diverse. So let's get a look at the film against the Vikings and see if there's anything that Hutchinson is or is not doing, and I think there'll be some interesting finds. We'll look at pass rush situations, end zone angle only, and see how much carryover there was or is in terms of Hutchinson playing better in a 3-point stance versus a 2-point stance. Playing a little bit high, I think, out of a 2-point stance, number 1, and number 2, being a little less committed to playing downhill aggressive on his tracks, if you will. Now, look, the Lions had 4 sacks last week, but 3 of them was by DBs. Melifonwu had 2, Branch had 1, and then Romeo Okwara had 1. It's a pretty aggressive call here on the first play of the game. It's a play action, and you've got a 5 or 6-man rush, whatever you want to call it. There's a there's a blitz off the edge from where Hutchinson is. So Hutchinson is stunting to the inside. You got a play action fake coming right at him. He's stunting to the inside. I think he's high. I just do. Rodriguez is off the edge. And either Anzalone or Joseph, who's off screen to our left, blows a coverage here. Big completion on the first pass, to be honest with you. Compare this one to one that I'm going to show in a moment in terms of Hutchinson. At least he's playing downhill, getting hands on someone. I feel like sometimes as the season has gone on, his pad level has been a little bit higher. I really love Bruce Irvin's stance, but Bruce Irvin also isn't 6'7", 270 pounds like Aidan Hutchinson. I think he's 6'3". I do prefer Hutchinson in a 2-point stance, but when they're doing some of the stunting stuff or dropping him out in pass coverage, then it's kind of more beneficial for him to be in a 2-point stance. So I understand that. If Aaron Glenn's guys are going to be more multiple from a defensive standpoint, it might be beneficial for him to be in a 2-point stance more often. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. Second play here, another play action concept. He's actually in a 2-point stance here, kind of hidden on the other side of Brian Branch. There's really nothing to say here about Hutchinson, but someone needs to cover this over concept. Ball is on the left hash for the defense. When the play resets, hopefully you understand what I mean. I don't think you need Anzalone to cross the midline so fast. Credit to the Vikings that it's a wide receiver, Osborne, that's running this over concept. But Anzalone is real heavy here. I do suspect that in recent weeks you're talking about 3 or 4 coverages that he's blown or messed up, and or being out of position. On this play here, I think he could certainly defend that better than crossing the midline so quick. Someone has to play it slower. Forgive me for digressing here. I know we're supposed to talk about Aidan Hutchinson, but these are plays that someone else needs to cover up better. Both plays Anzalone is involved. I'm not saying that both of them are his fault, quote unquote. I do suspect that the first one's on Kirby Joseph. So getting back to Hutchinson a little bit, this is still first possession. It's going to be a hold down in the end zone on Branch, who's dealing with Justin Jefferson. He gets jumped here, meaning Hutchinson. He gets jumped by the right tackle. It's not a flat jump, but it's still jumped. And he starts to fold inside, I think, a little bit too soon, too fast, if you ask me. I want to see him attacking and running a move. I understand he wants to keep the quarterback from getting out of the pocket. So there's an element here that some would say, well, Coach, he's folding underneath because he wants to make sure the quarterback doesn't get out there. In my opinion, there's a little bit of a lack of commitment here, unless this is the call for him to do so. I don't believe it is. However, having said that, I have seen at least 3 times recently where the defensive end on the defense's left, the offense's right, is kind of slow playing things. One time it was Jack Campbell. I believe another time it was Derek Barnes, so it clearly wasn't last week because I didn't see him on the field. And in this case, Aidan Hutchinson, I suspect he's just folding inside and not being committed to his move because he got jumped and he, quote, lost right off the initial move. Let me know what you guys think of that thought. All right, so second possession here. He's going to be stunting inside. He's off the right-hand side. Now, this is Melifonwu's sack. It's a 2nd and 4, second possession. So they're able to get a one-on-one with Melifonwu, and he wins against a running back. Awesome. Compare this stunt to the first one I showed you. You got some issues here from the standpoint of the whole scheme. There appears to be, I'm being a little picky here, to be real with you. I recognize that. I think he plays high. I just do. And I believe that it looks like there's the possibility that the other side D tackle is stunting across, which means where the hell is Hutchinson supposed to be? I don't actually think this. I think Hutchinson pinching inside needs to be a little bit more aggressive and not be as high. Definitely try to occupy that tackle, who I thought did a good job, got his hands on his chest multiple times. It works here. So what I'm talking about is 91 appears to look like he's going to fold over to this side. I'm not sure that Hutchinson folding that far inside is what you want. And it goes along with what I'm trying to say to you about him being high. I feel like sometimes it makes him appear light. And when I say light, I mean instead of being moved 12 inches or maybe a foot and a half by an offensive lineman getting their hands on you, you end up being moved by 2 feet or 2.5 feet. And there's a gap expansion. Maybe it's not a run concept or run play, so you're like, well, it doesn't matter if the gap is bigger. And what I mean is he's getting expanded on things that if his pad level was lower, he would not be. It sounds like I'm being super critical. Over the course of the video, I think you'll see that I'm not, because I actually think that a lot of his pass rush situations lately are either on things like you saw twice already, meaning he's a part of a stunt to get someone else open. Rodriguez on the first play, and then Melifonwu on that sack, the previous one. This, he's jamming the tight end on a 3rd and 15, excuse me. You have to credit Hutchinson for being unselfish and committed to the scheme. Now, some would say, well, Coach, I think the tight end is just stepping to him. That's possible. He is literally lined up right in the tight end's face, canted or tilted a little bit. But he gets hands on the tight end to impede his release 3 times in this game that I noticed. They do end up getting the football thrown to the tight end Hawkinson before he got hurt for a completion underneath on a 3rd and 15. Branch makes the play, and on the ensuing play, which I'll show you in a moment, Branch gets the interception. I think I like him attacking. I think that I'm showing you this play intentionally because he's jamming the tight end and then attacking, getting on his tracks, running some type of move, and then you counter and you either win or you lose. I like that better than the reactionary stuff we saw down there on the goal line, which, again, I'm open to the interpretation that, maybe they wanted him to do that, but I don't feel like Mullins is a real great mobile quarterback, a guy that you need a specific call in. Me, personally, I want Aidan Hutchinson attacking because I think he's really good at it. I prefer this version of him, the one you see on screen right here, versus the one that got jumped down on the goal line on the first possession and never really attacked at all. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. So next play, the ensuing play, again, Hutchinson is going to jam the tight end. He's lined up in this wider technique. Melifonwu clearly looks like he's going to play man on the tight end. Hawkinson. Branch is off screen to our right, dealing with Jordan Addison. He jams the tight end again, gets a big piece of him, which impedes the tight end's ability to get out into his route. It also slows down Hutchinson's ability to get to the quarterback. Now, you may not like that, and on some level, I don't at times as well. I credit him for being willing to do it, and I think it also removes some of his pass rush opportunities. And you, in my opinion, you see 5 of them already in this video, where he's either part of a stunt to clear someone else up, free someone else up, or he's jamming the tight end, which impedes his release, slows it down a little bit. And I think that could be one of the reasons why you see a dip in his sacks since week 5. It's not the only reason, but you still have to give credit, I think, to Aidan Hutchinson for executing what he's supposed to. Moving forward, third possession, he's going to end up with the fullback to his side. And the theme here should look very familiar to you. Branch is going to blitz on the inside and get the forced fumble. This is very similar to Melifonwu, except Melifonwu's blitz on the first play, Melifonwu was going outside. Rodriguez was going outside. And now it's Branch moving to the B gap. Hutchinson occupies the tackle, the right tackle, and the fullback 30. And then Branch slides inside, gets a big hit and a forced fumble. The consistent element here is there's just not a lot of opportunities for him to rush the passer unimpeded or not being a part of a stunt. Do I think that there is some real tendency here to use the stunts to his side or use his gravity, almost like an NBA player who's got great gravity and draws defenders and then kick it out to an open shooter? Yeah, I do. I think that's a part of what's going on here in the last 2 weeks. Do I think it's the entire explanation? Well, no. I'm trying to provide you some balance. One of my favorite sayings about football is, it's not that simple. Moving forward a little bit here, this is fourth possession. This is going to be a third down, and Hutchinson is going to stunt to the inside. Rodriguez is, I think, supposed to fold out over the top of that, and then outside on the edge, you've got Anzalone on a rush. So again, he's part of a stunt here. How many opportunities is he losing to get at the quarterback that maybe if he got those 6 or 7 more opportunities per game, he'd have those 7 or 8 or 9 sacks that we all wish he had right now? I don't know. I'm just presenting the plays to you, showing you my explanation. There's certainly times where he's not winning, but there's a lot of times in this game in Week 16 against the Vikings where something else is going on, him jamming the tight end, him being a part of a stunt, and he really is playing team defense and removed from the rush opportunity. You guys have seen at least 4 of them so far, if you ask me. Feel free to let me know what your interpretation of them is in the comment section. I feel like it's pretty obvious what's going on in some of these situations. Fifth possession, same exact dynamic. Hutchinson is at D tackle here. And again, I picked these to be, second and long or third down situations. You guys don't see the data at the bottom of the screen, but I have it. Maybe briefly I can figure out a way to show you. Forgive me for not doing that. But this is a 2nd and 10 on the fifth possession. The information is for me off screen to the bottom. And he's stunting across the center, and then Reeves-Maben occupies the guard. It's a brilliant stunt, man. I love it. I actually like the tenacity that he's playing at. I wish that this is what we had on a couple of those rushes where he did get a rush opportunity on the outside. There's a real commitment here and aggression. And again, he's occupying the center. He's actually, quote, one across the center's face. Reeves-Maben is going to the inside between the guard and the center gap, so A gap. And then you can see what happens. That frees up Melifonwu to run through the B gap. Now look, does Hutchinson get doubled on all this stuff? No. Is Hutchinson losing one-on-ones every play? No. Neither one of those things is true. It might be 8% true on one of them and 15% true on the other, or vice versa. As you can see, he's a part of a stunt multiple times from a tactical standpoint. And that's working, by the way, in this game. Do I want him to be used as a more typical edge rusher more often? Yes. Is this stuff working? Clearly, it is. The larger point is you should do what's working. I'd like to see them mix it up some more because what the Lions, I'd like to see them continue to mix it up. Excuse me, I misspoke there. Because what they were doing prior to Week 15 was not working. They did get 3 sacks against Justin Fields. Were unable to contain him on that touchdown run when Aidan Hutchinson has admitted that it was his fault for calling it. Nonetheless, prior to Week 15, they weren't able to pressure, disrupt, or hit the quarterback nearly as much as they have in the last 2 weeks. Different type of quarterback, perhaps, Dak Prescott on Saturday night in Dallas. We'll see if the things they're doing will continue to work. I suspect that Aaron Glenn is going to mix things up and give Hutchinson some opportunities to get to the quarterback and then also have him used as part of the stunt. This is a 3rd and 19. It's going to be complete to Jefferson over the middle. Again, you have a stunt with Hutchinson. He's at D tackle. You've got both the Alquara brothers on, Romeo and Julian, and then he's stunting all the way across here. It doesn't work. It's unsuccessful from the standpoint of getting him to the quarterback. I've shown you a number of 2nd and longs and third downs. We're now at the 5th possession. I haven't seen 4 straight rush opportunities for him unimpeded with no one chipping him or him potentially being responsible for jamming the tight end. 5-man rush, and he's clearly getting locked up off here on the left side, so he's not winning. You can't change the fact of what it is. He's lined up at D tackle here, by the way. To the bottom side, this is the touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson, obviously, at the end of the 2nd quarter. It's a 5-man rush, and it just doesn't work. The Vikings do a great job of picking this up. Initially, Hutchinson and the edge defender out there, kind of exchanged gaps, and that didn't work either. I think it's Pascal. I'll let it run through one more time. Pascal should be all the way to our left. The defense is right as the defensive end. That's Charles Harris. My apologies. I said Pascal. And then Hutchinson is the D tackle there. He gets passed off to the left tackle, who's clearly grabbing his shoulder pads. Hutchinson's got to be able to escape these things. That's the bottom line. They're going to hold, and there's got to be times where he's attacking more and winning with the first strike. I think there's some times where he doesn't want to lose with the first strike, and so he's somewhat hesitant to put that strike out there. In mixed martial arts or boxing terms, he almost looks like a counterpuncher who doesn't want to lead. And that's probably a gross oversimplification. Forgive me for that. But I like to make sports analogies, be it basketball or mixed martial arts. And that's the one that popped in my head while I was preparing this video. Now, this is a bull rush that I think is incredible. Where is this move? I'd like to see it more often. This is 6th possession. Again, it's a 2nd and 9. This is the play when Hawkinson gets hurt. This move looks productive to me. It looks like one I'd like to see more often, and I definitely wouldn't say that this is a counter-puncher's type move. To me, this is a guy stepping into the pocket, throwing my strike or my strikes right now, and I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose. That level of commitment, to me, is who Aidan Hutchinson is when he's at his best. And I think we're going to see that. I don't think that this is a situation where he's not going to have sacks. You may see him have a 2-sack game on Saturday. 6th possession again, 2nd and 7. Completed pass to Osborne. The difference between attacking and not attacking. There's times where he's trying to read, and he may be responsible for certain things. When he's attacking, he looks like the guy who had 9.5 sacks last year. He looks like the guy who played like a superstar in Week 1 against the Chiefs, the guy who had 4.5 sacks in the first 5 games. When he's not attacking, it doesn't look as special. Doesn't mean he's not a really good football player, but he just doesn't look like a guy on plays like this that's going to generate 10, 12 sacks a season. He can be both. He can be both, and that it's Aaron Glenn's job to figure out ways to put him in those attacking positions more often. Touchdown pass to Osborne on the 6th possession. He's obviously all the way to our left, lined up against the tight end. It's that fake run play. They had actually run a very similar play, or actually run the football on the same concept, I think 3 plays earlier, where the tight end is stepping out to the D end. In this case, it's Hutchinson. The wide receiver is stepping inside Geo ISO is what I would call it. Like he's going to go block the nickel defender or strong safety. And then, of course, he sneaks past Melifonwu for the touchdown. Actually, it's Dorsey. My apologies. Look, you have to let me know what you think. If you have a really hard set opinion on Aidan Hutchinson, I suggest you watch the film and maybe you come up with better solutions or better evaluations than I have. I never believe that it's that simple with a player with as much talent, gifts, and motivation and motor as Aidan Hutchinson that he can't do this or that teams are just doubling him the whole time. It's somewhere in the middle and it vacillates or changes on each play. Aaron Glenn and the defensive staff, in my opinion, the last 2 weeks have tried to change those variables or flip that equation on the opposing team's offense's head, meaning in some cases use Aidan Hutchinson's gravity or attention on a stunt to free up someone else. I tried to show you examples of that early, but I didn't pick and choose the order from Week 17 film. To be honest with you, I clearly showed you by possession up through the 6th possession. I think Aidan Hutchinson can absolutely end up with 10, 12 sacks in any given year. He's not going to this year, presumably. We're at, I think, 6.5 with 2 games left. But he's a guy, because of his motor, his athletic ability, and his explosiveness when he's playing downhill, when he's attacking, who could very easily get you 2.5 sacks at a game and a forced fumble. I love the player, love the talent that he has. Do we want more production from him in terms of sacks and quarterback hits? Yes. It's not a bad thing to say that. And I have no problem if someone quotes quarterback pressures. If you do that, I would suggest you just show me the plays because I just don't think quarterback pressures are defined well enough to be used as the end-all, be-all, or the exclamation point to define how well someone is playing. In my own limited understanding, the best way that I can try to show what Aidan Hutchinson is and is not doing and what the coaches are asking him to execute is to show you the film and try to explain my thought process while doing so. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study look, hopefully a balanced look at how well Aidan Hutchinson is playing recently, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.